hi and welcome to another episode of The Promising Creative, where I have the amazing Cam Edwards. I'm not going to say Cameron, but I feel like I want to now. I know.
But it is my name, Billy.
Cameron Edwards. It's such a beautiful name.
Oh, thank you. Is that why you don't want to say it?
Cameron. I have a friend whose name is Nathaniel, and I love his name.
Yeah.
He likes to be called Nat, but I call him Nathaniel.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know who you are, Nathaniel. I won't say anymore. So I've been trying to get you on to get your story here for a while, and obviously it's been quite difficult because you're out. And for people that don't know, you're one half of Sigma.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be a lovely house. Mate.
And we've just gone and got a coffee and chatted all things about life. And obviously, I want to start off. We do have questions, but I'm not going to look at those questions. I'm just going to start off where I want to go with this. So I wanted to first of all start off with, what was it like growing up? Where did you grow up? And at what point did you realise that music was your thing, or are you a secret plumber and became a builder, or are you secret mathematician?
I wish I was that skilled, mate. Jesus, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I grew up in Surrey. Mum lives in Surrey. Mum and dad aren't together, but I grew up with my mum. She was always like, it wasn't like I grew up and I picked up guitar and I was like a natural or anything like that. I think I had piano lessons when I was at school and I used to run away from them because I used to hate it so much. So like, like anything that's forced on you, which is like, you've got to do this, you kind of do the opposite when you're a kid.
100%.
Which obviously looking back now as an adult, you're like, well, I wish I'd actually done that. Would be quite happy considering what I do now. So yeah, that was good growing up in Surrey. My mum was always like, I remember saying to her, like, I want to get a pair of decks. So she helped me sort of get these like belt drive, I can't remember what they were, like really crap turntables, and I used to go to HMV and buy like just whatever vinyl I can get my money on, and not even the same genres or anything. It was just vinyl. Do you know what I mean? Get it home and it would just be a load of crap. But she was always very supportive, and obviously gave me the ability to then sit in my bedroom and start making music. So I mean, it was all because of her, really.
And was that at a young age? How young is young?
No, it wasn't really. I mean, I had decks at probably like 15, 16. And then went to uni and I met Joe at uni, Joe Sigma. And he was the one who was like doing music production. I mean, I never even thought about, because in my head, I was like, a friend of mine at home had a studio, but he'd spent like something like 15 grand on external gear and everything. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to afford that, especially if it's just a hobby at this stage, And then I met Joe and he's like, everything's in the computer. And I'm like, I didn't realise you could have a studio where you just have a little keyboard and like everything's, I thought you had to buy everything, like, and obviously then he was like, everything was bought. so he kind of showed me the kind of cheap way of like, because it was a hobby then, it wasn't like something where we were trying to make money from it. And we just used to sit up late and making tunes at uni. Like, I remember he came to my record store. I was working at a record store in Leeds, and he came in like putting posters up. This is Joe from Sigma. Kept putting posters up and being like, I've got this hip hop event. He was very like low key about it, and I was like, all right, talk to me. What is it? He goes, oh, it's just this event I'm doing. It turns out he was like a DMC champion, like, so he's very good at, like, he's a sick DJ, and like he really underplayed it. And so we ended up sort of getting together, trying to making this rubbish music. It was awful, and then carried it on from after that, really.
What was you studying at uni?
I was doing events management, so it was kind of like basically a pretty pointless course, but it's kind of like touches on business. But I kind of wanted to get into the event sector in some variety. Didn't really think it was going to be like nightclubs and stuff like that, but I just wanted to do something to do with events. It was always of interest to me, and then I ended up sort of using my student loan to
as you do
actually to do something quite positive with it. I use a lot of it on going out, but I mean, I used it to set up like a little business, and I did it with actually Obi, who is now our agent, who looks after us. He's got one of the biggest agencies in the world, and he was running an event called Event Horizon up there, which is a drum and bass event. And,
okay.
He had like loads of wicked acts and stuff, and he was kind of coming to the end of his time at uni, and he was like, do you want to take this on? So I kind of took it off him, and we started to do some events and stuff up there. And it was cool. It was good. We didn't make any money, and we lost quite a lot of money actually, but it's good experience to sort of work out how business works, and and the whole event side of things. So I think it kind of put me in good stead to sort of start working it all out in my own head as what it is I wanted to do and stuff.
It's quite shocking when you do a big event and you work really hard and then you lose money.
It is, and I think it's also quite shocking when you actually look at the break evens and stuff. If you're 100 people out of your break even, that's a big sum of money. Do you know what I mean? But then 100 up is, you know, I think the break evens we had were so tight that like if we had 50 people less, you were like basically working for free for a month. Yeah. You know, it's quite tough. So I take my hat off to any promoters out there, really.
Yeah, it's quite difficult.
Yeah.
So when did you guys tell me a little bit more? So you started doing events. Well, obviously, was you doing with Joe or
no? So I used to book Joe because we always used to do drum and bass in one room and then hip hop in the other room.
Okay.
And I obviously knew that he'd come into the record shop and he was like, I do hip hop. I do hip hop. So I was like, well, come and do hip hop in the second room. So he kind of came down and he we had a bit of a lineup and he kind of came down. We just got to know each other really through doing that. Yeah, we had some pretty good events actually, like Andy C, like DJ Hype, you know, all the sort of big drum and bass names. It was just very taxing because I was trying to do my degree at the same time.
Yeah.
And trying to run a business, which I had no idea what I was doing really. And yeah, it was difficult, definitely.
Did you, when you finished the events and you finished uni, what was your next step? At what point did you guys decide that you were going to join up, and how did that story come about?
Well, I was actually up in Leeds still, and I finished my degree, and I was like, I really had no idea what I was doing. And I remember calling Obi, who I was talking about earlier, who runs Universal Artists now, and he was like, mate, I'm going to start this agency. Do you want to come down and work for me, sort of thing? And I was like, no, man, I just want to stay up in Leeds. He's like, look, think about this, mate. What the fuck are you going to do in Leeds? He's like, the difference is you're not a student anymore, so you're going to have to find a job. You're going to have to, so he kind of kicked my ass a bit, and I was like, you know what? Probably should leave now. I think my time here is done. So I left Leeds, went down and started working in this tiny little office in Rayners Lane. I used to get there, I think I was only like $1,000 a month, you know, so I was just kind of covering he spun it as like work experience, you know, give me $1,000, lucky $1,000 a month. So I was booking flights for like all the big DJs, really, all the big drum and bass DJs, and it was good because I would go to the studio with Joe, we'd write tunes, and then I'd go into work the next morning, having got the music we'd made, and kind of with the ability to then give it to all of these people that I was talking to, like Chase and Status, Subfocus, Pendulum, like all these big name DJs. You know, the guys that I kind of grew up listening to and stuff. And, you know, I'd be out there sort of like sorting their flights out. I actually didn't mess many up, actually, which was quite good. And apparently I was quite good at my job, so that was good. But then I had the ability to then send them all the music we were making. So
it was win-win.
Win-win. And it's, you know, as you all know, like it's the contacts you have which are everything, you know, and you could be the best producer and have the best music, but if you don't get people to listen to it, it doesn't mean anything. So, I mean, I saw this as an opportunity really to kind of start building those contacts within the scene that we wanted to get into. And it worked really well for us because we got a couple of tunes signed to Mampy Swift's label. And
so by then you'd formed Sigma with...
Well, Sigma came around because I used to DJ in this like pub in Godalming called The Anchor. And it was like real heavy drum and bass, like with another friend of mine called Ben. And it was the two of us. And then when I met Joe and we started to make tunes together, I was a bit like, well, we need a name. And Joe's just quite blasé with stuff. He's like, yeah, well, we should just pick something. And I was like, well, how about Sigma? And then I had this idea of because Ben was a good producer and Joe was a good producer. And I thought, bring them both together. We'll have this like mega powerhouse of like production. But their characters at that time were quite different.
Yeah.
So Ben was quite introvert. Joe was quite out there. They're friends now, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying this, but they kind of clashed a little bit at that time. Yeah. So Ben kind of stepped back, and then me and Joe took the Sigma name. Not that it was anything back then, and we were just like, let's run with that and go with it, sort of thing.
So it was always going to be drum and bass, even with Joe as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think when you're younger, you kind of pick your lane a little bit. We were quite closed-minded when it came to music. It was like you're either into house music or you're into drum and bass, sort of thing. It's like, and if you like house music, you're not allowed
to like drum and bass anyway. How dare you?
Well, this is the thing is, I was saying to my friend about this the other day. It's like when I was at university, I was in this house with these like 4 girls that like they're really good-looking girls, and I was there with my mate. And we used to go to drum and bass nights. They used to go to all the house events. Not at one point did I think to myself, why don't we go to those events where all these good-looking girls are going to instead of the events where all these grungy dudes are going to? never clocked. But yeah, so we went down the drum and bass lane, and I mean, I was never like anti-house music.
Sorry, go on. So I just going back to the drum and bass. I used to go to a night called AWOL.
Oh yeah.
They used to have house, like US disco house downstairs.
Yeah.
And upstairs was drum and bass. And I would never go upstairs.
Of course not. And I bet that room was vibing as well.
And it was scary upstairs for me. Downstairs was all soft and quite fairy, and everyone was having like upstairs was really aggressive.
Yeah.
But later on, I was like, oh, I really like drum and bass.
Yeah.
What was I thinking at that time?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, I think it's a different kind of crew that go to drum and bass events. We used to go. It was like we used to see it's like a pilgrimage up to sort of London, going to the End, Fabric and stuff like that. You know, it'd be like Friday nights.
The End.
Going on, sick club. I mean, look, I'm sorry to sound like an old git, but like, there's nothing like that anymore, man. Like, the clubs are very different now, and I think one of the main things with the clubbing experience now is phones. And like when I used to go, it's like people used to literally be in there just literally enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
Like, you would, obviously there weren't camera phones and stuff, thank God, because God knows what we would have seen. But yeah, I mean, I think now it's all very much like people very much like have to film everything just for later. I mean, how often do you actually look back at any of the fucking videos you film? Never.
Yeah.
But everyone's just like this. I see like Printworks, and it's like a wicked club and stuff, but I mean, obviously it's shut down now, but I mean, you know, you see some of the visuals, and then literally from the back, everyone's just got their phone up, and I'm like, dude, it's just like, what? Just killing it.
I think James Hype put something out yesterday or the day before saying that he played in a club in Germany and there was no phones or cameras at all. You couldn't bring them in.
Oh, they just played.
You couldn't bring them in.
Yeah.
And he said it was a completely different feel for him when he went there, and he was like, oh my God.
People actually in it.
People are just there, like going for it with the music and no phones out.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, it's a different time now, and
it is. I mean, and also it's like, as a DJ, you kind of want people to be sharing their experiences as well. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because you want people to be living in the moment, but also those moments that they're filming and sharing online help you get more people looking at what you're doing.
Yeah. So you've started making music, you're booking flights, doing a good job of it.
Apparently.
Giving out your tracks to people, which is always helping.
Yeah.
At what point did it start to get a bit of traction? At what point did you like, oh,
well,
that was okay, we did that. That worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, we were just always in the studio. Like, I would finish work and then I'd go to Joe's house. So I'd finish at Rayners Lane, and I'd go to his house, and I'd probably stay in the studio until like 1, 2 a.m. and then drive back home to Surrey to my mum's place, get up for work at like 9. So it was like this constant like cycle of like work and trying to do music and stuff. And then it kind of realized that it was quite difficult to do both, you know, because I wanted to focus. We weren't making any money or anything, but I wanted to focus more on the Sigma stuff and actually creating our own music. I think one of the things I saw as well was, you know, there was DJs out there that were doing, say, 3 or 4 gigs a week, and I knew how much they were making, and I'm like, these guys are making, you know, good money from doing this, and this is something which is doable. You know, we could do it if I focus our energy on this and we both get our heads down, we could be a success as well. So we kind of focused a lot on it. We started making tunes. We had a bit of a sort of backlash, because I think the two of us are quite outspoken, and I think within the drum and bass scene, it's sometimes you have to get into a kind of a lane a little bit. Like, there's certain record labels like Hospital Records. There's like back then it was like Ram Records, and Breakbeat Chaos and stuff like that. And you kind of get in a lane, and we didn't really want to get in a lane. We wanted to kind of just do whatever we wanted to, but if you do that, you don't become part of a camp.
Yeah.
So we were not getting booked on a lot of lineups, because if you go to a Hospital Records night, they'll book all of their own artists.
Yeah.
And there might be space for one other act, and it's not going to be us because we're nobodies, you know. So it was a struggle. Like, you know, there were points where like we were like, oh, this, I'm not sure how this is going to work. You know, this is.
Did you leave your job then?
I left the job at Echolocation, which was the agency, and focused on Sigma stuff.
Okay.
And I remember at the time I was living in Manchester with my ex back then, and I remember getting my my pay, sort of like my accounts back for that year, and I think we made like 12 grand. And you know, my ex is a teacher. I think she still is. I don't know, but she's a teacher, and I was like, I'm making like a third of what she's making. And I remember calling Joe up, and I was like, hey, I mean, look, I love this and I love doing this, but I don't know how much longer we can go on like this. 12 grand's not enough for anything. I was living in Manchester, but it's not that cheap. It's not that cheap.
There is still electricity out there, and I do have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't mind just going out.
Sorry, everyone from Manchester. I know you've got electricity.
And so like, it was weird because like the next day, pretty much the next day or that week or whatever, I remember hearing like a Kanye album, and it was Bound 2 was on it, and there's a bit in the record which goes into this gospel section. But it's like so random because it went in for like 10 seconds and went back to this other tune, and I was like, that's really bizarre. So I remember calling Joe up. I was like, I was going to have a go at like this tune, and Joe was always like, he kind of he's doing 100 things at once, so he never really listens. So he's like, yeah mate, cool, just crack on with it, sort of thing. I was like, yeah. So I gave it a go, just threw some drums that Joe had made into the mix, and created this tune, sent it to Joe. I think he probably didn't listen to it straight away. And then I remember like, we were a bit like, oh, this is depressing, we don't know what we're doing. I had a bit of a writer's block. Went over to his house and I was like, why don't we open up that Kanye West thing that I've done? And so we open it up and he's like, it's all right, could be right. So we worked on it. He made it sound much better than it was. And he goes, oh, fuck it, should we just send it to Annie Mac? Because we had quite a good relationship with Annie Mac back then. And we were like, oh, there's nothing to, no harm in sending it. So we sent it to her. She was like, I think her exact words were, I'm in the library, I nearly just fell off my chair. And we're like, is that good? Is that a bad thing or what? And then she was like, do you mind if I start my show with it on Friday? And this is like, I think we sent it on Thursday, so it was the next day. And we were like, yeah, obviously go for it. So she played it. We were like, look, let's get this up online because there's no way we're going to clear the sample and all the rest of it. So let's get it online. We'll maybe get some data capture. So we put it on SoundCloud, trying to get like emails really just to get data. Then Nick Grimshaw heard her playing it. He played it first tune on the Monday morning on his breakfast show. Our record label called us up and goes, guys, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we haven't even heard this tune. Take it down now. Like, we need to put this out. And so we were like, okay, all right. So we took it down. I think we got like 200 emails or something in the process. So anyway, they went through the process, got it all replayed, got it re-sung and everything. And the tune ended up coming out and it went to like number one in, I always get this wrong, I think it's like 12 countries or something. And it was just like literally like that. It wasn't overnight because it took about 2 months to come out, but suddenly we were like on chart shows and I was on Radio 1 on the big top 20 and Capital.
How does that feel when that happens?
It's weird because it's not like we ever wanted to be chart success or pop or anything like that, but when your music is thrust into the world of pop, you suddenly become that. Nothing really prepares you for everything that goes with it though, because it's like, you're suddenly into this world which is like, okay, we're on Capital, and I remember going in, Joe couldn't make it that day, but I went in with literally my manager, walked in and the Bamps were there, and I love those guys, I know them quite well now. So however many of us, 5 of them, and then had their stylists, and then they had like their management team, and then all their PAs, and they're all over that side of the room. There's just me and my manager just sat here going, do you know what I mean? It's like, and I was like, what is this world we're in? And so they're all like, they're really young and sort of like, woo. And I think at the time I was like, I must have been like 32 or something like that. So I was a bit older, or quite a bit older than them. And so I was just like, nothing was that, like, I wasn't that enthusiastic. I was like, this is great. But like, I'm actually quite nervous. Massive imposter syndrome, because I'm like, what the fuck am I doing in Capital on the radio? It's just mental. And then we got the number one and I'm like, fucking hell, well, that's crazy. Don't really know what this means, but I guess we might get some more bookings. Maybe our fee will go up. And then we had to follow it up. So we did the tune with Ella sent a track over with these guys called TMS, and it was Changing like ended up being our second release after Nobody to Love. Got Paloma Faith on it, and that went to number one as well. And it was just like back to back sort of number ones, and it was just like, it was a bit of a strange thing because I don't think many people have done that before, and it just like it created everything that we have now, really.
Imposter syndrome, it's quite a big thing. I didn't realise it because I suffer from it a lot.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Because you think, oh my God, do I even know what I'm doing? This is like, I think I definitely had it with the podcast. I still have. I'm like, oh my God, I'm interviewing people. I've never done it before. You're so full of shit, Billy.
Yeah, but that's
what are you doing?
I think everyone's full of shit though.
It's okay. We'll just do it at home. It's okay. You can just put it as a chair. Yeah. Got the dog. It's okay. How'd you get over that?
I think imposter syndrome is it's part of the success journey, I think. And anyone who tells you they don't have it is just lying, I think, because I think for me back in the day, I think with a lot of success comes a lot of stress, because there's always you always think that you're going to get to a certain point and then that will be it, and you're like I've achieved what I need to do, and then it stops. But then you just open up, and it's almost like you're in a computer game. You open up a whole new level of stress that you then have to sort of look at. And I feel that like imposter syndrome, like going to all these shows and stuff, it's like my way of dealing with it back in the day was drinking. And like I'd have a drink and I'd have like get my nerves down. You know, I'd be going to like on a big stage, I'd have a few drinks, I'd be fine. You know, because you're suddenly in the mode. But that when you're doing that shit all the time, you end up drinking a lot of the time, and that's not actually the solution at all. It's not actually helping anything, because you're not actually dealing with anything. You're just like sort of dumbing it down a little bit, numbing yourself to what you're actually feeling. And I think that, look, I still get it to today, like the feeling of imposter syndrome, because none of us really know what the fuck we're doing, do we? It's just that we're trying to work it out every day and trying to do the best in doing it. And I think my way of dealing with it now is just being as honest as you can about the way you feel, and be honest to yourself about how you feel, because you're not going to know how to deal with everything, because no one does, you know, and you just have to just do your best. And hopefully people like it.
So when you so what you do now is you just say, it's okay, I know that feeling's there, but I'm just going to crack on and just keep doing what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, look, it definitely, when the drinking thing, because I chose not to drink anymore recently, and like doing the gigs and stuff, I thought was going to be a very a different experience, and it was a very different experience, because it's almost been like 10 years of like lots of shows, lots of big festivals, lots of stressful festivals. And suddenly you haven't got that crutch that you've got of alcohol beforehand. Because I'd have a few, like probably like 5 or 6 pints for a gig easy, and that would just like level me out, kind of thing. But you're not. The funny thing is about that, you're not really experiencing the highs of your natural self in that moment.
Yeah,
you're just experiencing like a piss version of yourself, going, "Woo, this is sick," and then afterwards you're continuing that high a little bit. Whereas now it's like, I did a festival in Czech Republic recently, and it was one called Beats for Love, and you know, play there quite a lot. It was like 35,000 people, you know. So you step onto the stage and you're on this raised up platform, and instantly your heart's just like, fucking hell, like this, because it's not natural. This, I'm not Michael Jackson. I'm not a performer. I'm not like, I'm just a DJ, you know, and like
and producer,
yeah. But you know, all we do is we just write music, and like, fuck are all these people doing here? Do you know what I mean? But you have to kind of like, you have to confront it, and it's like you have to take it head on and be like, you know, this I'm in this moment now. What am I going to do? I'm either going to like just have a panic attack, which is bullshit, because like I need to perform, or I need to step into this feeling and work it out. And I think the thing I've been doing more so recently is actually like standing on the stage before I go on, and obviously no one can see me, and taking a lot of deep breaths and like kind of trying to bring myself back into myself, because I've done it a million times. It's just, there's a lot more people watching.
Yeah.
And you just, as soon as you're up there, you're fine. But so you can create like a really awkward moment for yourself if you let your brain go mental, you know, but it's just up to you to not let that happen.
And so what made you stop drinking? Was it too much, or what was the moment you're like, do you know what, I'm done with that, I'm caning it? Like you said, you're a bit of a pissed up version of yourself. You're not really feeling the moment, but that's not an easy thing to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't just be like, oh,
yeah,
it wasn't a light bulb.
Yeah.
Was it? I don't know. Was it?
I think it was, I think when I was living in East London, when we were hanging out a bit more, like I was a single guy, you know, I was very much feeling a point of my life where I wanted to be that single guy and have like a, you know,
wild times,
anything goes kind of thing, you know. And I kind of feel like in London, like I did that kind of thing, and it's a great place to sort of be a single guy and to, you know, go and experience London and stuff. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and I think most people went really crazy on drink and stuff during the pandemic, because it was like, what else do you do? It's like, you know, suddenly we're free, don't have to work, everything's shut. And I think once again, it's that thing of like, people weren't actually walking into what was actually going on, because no one had a job and everyone was just like drinking to like forget almost. And I was drinking a lot, and like, you know, so was my girlfriend and, you know, her family and stuff. It was like, you know, everything's a party, you know. And it just got to the point where like that's not even fun anymore. You're just doing it, you know. And I think the thing for me is like with drink comes other things as well. So you know, there's drugs that come into it, and I think the drug side of things is it's dangerous because it becomes almost like normalized. I think in society these days, to, you know, on a Friday, Saturday, people get a gram of coke in or something, and that's not normal. You know, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing it on a Friday, Saturday night and then it becomes like you're sort of like later on in the week, and then it's maybe a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the next thing you know, you're feeling like death on a Monday, and it's like all your serotonin is depleted. You're not living, you know, and the amount of down days I used to get, God, it was like, especially when obviously our industry was just on its arse during the pandemic, and then you do that, you sprinkle alcohol and drugs into the mix as well, and it's like, who the fuck am I anymore? Like I feel depressed, you know, I'm really down, and it was a hard time for everyone. I get that, but there were people out there who like thrived on, you know, you can sort of make good of a bad situation, and I don't think I was really. I think I came back from a studio session in London, and we'd had a few drinks and stuff, and I got back home in this new house that I bought, and, you know, and I've worked very hard to get in a position of like being able to afford this house, and I've jumped through all the hoops to get a mortgage, you know, only just got it, hit to the post on, you know, it's so many different things, as you know, buying a house. And I remember getting back, and I remember like, I think there was a little bit of ting left, and I finished it off, and I remember sitting in my house, and I was like, fuck, I hate this place, you know, and I was sat there, and the sun was coming up, it was a beautiful day, and I was like, I felt really sad, and that was the moment where I was like, what? And I almost had this like thing where I looked at myself and I was like, what am I talking about? You know what I mean? The only reason I'm thinking this is because I've been drinking and I've been doing that. And this isn't actually how I feel. And that was the point where I was just like, I'm done. You know, I think I was like 39 or like, I was 40, just about to be 39. And I wanted to be sober by the age of 40. I'd always said that. And I remember sort of sitting there going, this is the last day I feel like this. I'm not doing this anymore. And it wasn't even that difficult really, because that was the switch that you were talking about, that happened, and I was like, I'm not letting this happen anymore.
And you just stopped. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really been there. Obviously, there's always a reason, because I remember when I told my girlfriend, she was like, we were going to a birthday party that weekend. She was like, why don't you just do it after this weekend? And I'm like, and look, she's been so supportive throughout this whole process for me, and like, I'm not trying to, you know, say she hasn't, but I was like, listen, babe, look, if you want, in my eyes, if you want to do something, you've got to do it like the second you say you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be a reason for me not to do this. But Monday will come around, and then next weekend there'll be a dinner that we're going to, and I'll have to do it after the Monday after that. So I'm doing it this weekend, and I'm going to go to the birthday party sober. And, you know, she was worried that I was going to be boring, which to be honest, I probably was.
Because it's a shock.
It is a shock.
It's a shock when you're like, you know, people like, because I don't drink, and you go out and people are like, oh, why do you have a drink? I'm like, I don't drink. I'm like, what? What do you mean? What? Why are you here?
Yeah.
Because I want to go out.
well, I always used to think that you were drinking, because like your personality as well, though, is very like bubbly and like.
That was 80 cans of Red Bull, probably.
But you don't need to drink. I mean, how long have you been sober?
It's like I'm 10 years in November, I think.
Amazing. Yeah.
So, but I was the same as you. Like, I was like, no, I'm gonna. Well, mine wasn't a light bulb moment. I mean, I had to scrape the barrel and rip my face to pieces, and then step in to recovery, which I had to do. Which is, you know, and it's nice to hear your story, because you're like, no, I'm done with feeling shit.
Yeah,
I'm done with feeling down.
Yeah,
because I'm creating it myself.
Yeah.
Because life's actually all right. I've got a new ass.
Yeah,
got a missus. Things are okay. My work's good. What's the problem?
Yeah,
it's what I'm putting inside my body, which is altering my mind.
100%. And I think you got to take. It's like kind of. I think with all this, I've never been to sort of A&E.
AA.
Sorry, I have been to A&E.
Many times. Yeah, many times A&E.
I haven't been to AA, but yeah. I mean, I think you've got to kind of own it. I think you've got to take responsibility,
100%.
And you've got to like. You know, I was the one fucking up, and this is because of me, sort of thing. And it's like, now it's time to I take responsibility. I take responsibility for the way I feel now. And it's funny, because when I was going through the process of trying to get this house, I was still drinking, and I was like, you know, help out in the evenings, or, you know, I'd have to relax and chill out after a long day. And then the next day I'd just be down, and I'm like, I remember calling like Lucy, my girlfriend, up, like, oh, I feel so sad today, kind of thing. She's like, oh, trying to help me through it. And I'm like, it's all because of booze and in my
Because what goes up must come down.
Yeah, all my chemicals in my brain and serotonin's all over the place. It's like, when you take that out of your life, you give yourself a much easier opportunity to be happy, I think.
Yeah.
And I think, we life is difficult. There's a lot of challenges that get thrown in your face every single day, every single week, that you have to like make the decision to either attack it in a positive way or bury your head in the sand and drink or to go to the pub or whatever. If you confront things face on, yeah, it's difficult, but like you're being an honest version of yourself and you're dealing with it there and then. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's important that in society at the moment, it's important that I think a lot of people drink to almost like get away from reality. And all you're doing is pushing back reality to like the next day or the next week or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel better for it, definitely.
So you stopped. And you started playing gigs where you were completely on a natural high, because that's what it becomes then.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I'm in this moment. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it. Oh, and I'm actually sober.
Yeah.
Did your music change in any way, or did your process change, or did anything else change at that moment? Or
I think during the sort of time that Sigma had their first #1 to probably like when I stopped drinking, there's always been a reason to celebrate, which is we're very lucky because there's always been like a tune's gone silver, or like we've suddenly got a playlist record, and there's always a reason to be like on the Friday, oh, let's have a drink, and I think Joe and my relationship's always been very good. We're like business partners. We're brothers. We've been doing this thing now like successfully for over 10 years. However, there's been periods where I probably dropped the ball quite a lot because I was focusing more on like having a good time than the business. And I think as a result of giving up the drinking, my focus now is fully on the business again. And I think that when you sort of get rid of those distractions from your life, I mean, some people can have a very high job and still drink and do it all together, which is great. For me, it wasn't working so well doing that. So I think my relationship with Joe has 100% improved. We're way more focused on Sigma now. My life has improved in terms of like just everything seems to be molding in a much better way now that I'm focused on everything positively. And I think in terms of our music, I think we've almost done a whole 360 where we've gone back to drum and bass again. We didn't sort of really ever leave it, but we left like the underground sound. And so, obviously with the success comes the want to write successful music. And so a lot of the time that's house music or stuff which is not necessarily drum and bass. Whereas now we're like, fuck it, we're just going to write what we want again. And we're not going to listen to what, say, the record label want us to do, what managers or whatever want us to do. We're going to be fully focused on what we want to do.
Kind of back to your roots.
Back to the roots, yeah, 100%.
Sometimes that's all we have.
Yeah.
Like we can go all around the world, but when we come back, it's just us.
Yeah.
Back to where we started.
100%.
And it's nice that you can find that because some people never find it again.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's nice and you're like, okay, we're just going to go back, create the sounds that we want. And it will do whatever it does, like it did when we first started. Whether it did well or not, didn't really matter. We just did it.
Yeah, that's it.
And off it went.
We're not trying to be successful. We're just doing it because we love it.
So you're making your new music. You're living in Woking?
Yeah, we'll say Horsell because Woking's a bit of a shithole.
Okay. I don't know. I went to rehab in Woking actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I don't know where it was, but I've never left.
Right.
I did try and think about climbing the walls at one point and diving out, but you could have just left via the door. They weren't locking you in.
So what? When you went to rehab, then how long were you in there for?
For a month.
If you don't mind asking, what was the reason that you decided to go to rehab?
I'd hit the floor. I think I was done.
Right. Like
both, just complete mash to pieces, like in bundle. I remember just like you having a moment. I was in the front room on this horrible couch that I had, and I'd had a massive evening or whatever it was. And I just remember lying there. My friend came out and she said, and I was crying to her. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm fucked. She just said, look, I love you. You're my friend. She said, I'm going to help you sort it out. And within a week, I was in rehab. But funny thing was, I all my mates came round. I called a mother's meeting with my friends, like 3 of my best mates. I was like, look, and I pulled all the drink out that I had around the house. And I remember saying to them that, this is what I drank today. And they were like, right, they knew there was something wrong. And then I was like, look, I'm going to go rehab. But after Christmas, I just went over one more go at it. And my mate went to me, you know, one of my friends, really good friend of mine, Dan, he said, listen, you know, he said, in life, when you've got something wrong, you know, you've got to deal with it straight away. And I was like, yeah, I've got to do that. He goes, well, you're going to have to deal with it straight away.
Yeah.
And I was gutted.
Yeah.
I was gutted. I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I was still enjoying hitting the brick wall 400 miles an hour and then like coming back together. And then, I went in November, like November the 14th. I remember, and I came out December the 14th, and I was just like, I was on tilt for a while, because it's like you say, you go out and you can't. I'm used to being out of my nut, like dancing, like bouncing off walls, and I wasn't doing that. I was quite, I went to Pikes last week with my friends, and they'd had some chocolate, let's just say that. Yeah. And I was completely sober, but I found the whole experience amazing. The music was great. I had a really good dance. I came out, and maybe I had a bit too much sugar.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you get to my age. I have too much sugar. What do you have? I had 2 bars of chocolate and a Red Bull. So what you want? I'm on Red Bull, mate, and a bar of chocolate. So anyway, it was great. I had a really good time. And I think that, as you said before, life is about having those experiences that get you to the place that you are. And I think that's like, when you told me you weren't drinking, I was like, okay, that's really cool. But you managed to have that, because not self-control, because when you're an addict, which I was, I couldn't stop. There was no stop. There was just on. The button was on.
Yeah.
Imagine just the button being on continuously.
Yeah.
I couldn't take my finger off it. Whereas you're at a place where you're like, I'm done with that.
Yeah.
And your life has got considerably better.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I think when you choose to sort of, stop drinking and stuff, it's quite a big, because I'm quite a sociable person, and I was quite a good drinker. Like people wouldn't, it's not like I'm like shouting and fighting, and I was just quite myself, but just happier, I think.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, I think I was having points where I was arguing more with my girlfriend, and she was a bit like, look, you need to calm it down a bit. I'm like, no, I'm fine. One of them. Where she's obviously right and I was wrong. And I know that now. At the time, your ego is so like inflated. You're like, I'm fine. Who's she going to tell me that
Can't tell me what to do.
Tell me what to do. I'm a grown-ass man.
No, you're not. You're a boy.
Yeah.
You're acting like one.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
No, exactly. And I think everything improves, really. I mean, I think the sad thing is, it's so accepted in society that you can go to the pub when the sun's out and have a drink. But and look, I'm not anti anyone having a drink, or I'm not anti-drink. I'm not one of these like soldiers that is like,
how dare you be drinking?
Drink, and like, I couldn't give a shit what you choose to do. But all I do know is that it strips away your emotions to some degree, and you're not actually experiencing life how you should experience it. And you only really do experience it sober. That's the thing. And you're not meant to be on this planet drinking, and you're meant to be on this planet being yourself all the time. And we are put onto this planet to experience life as yourself, and not with the enhancement of booze and stuff like that. Obviously, it makes things a lot more fun, but as we all know, it comes back down again.
Yeah, it does. In moderation, it's fine, I think.
Yeah.
So, Cameron,
yes,
what's the plan for the next sort of like what's the plan in the foreseeable future? Yeah, what's the plan for you? What's the plan for Sigma?
I think we're in this era at the moment with the music where it's gone after the pandemic as well. It's gone through this kind of shift in almost like I hate to use this word, but a little bit of a reset with some of the DJs and stuff. And I think that we're in this social media era now where it's almost as important as the music. And this is something that we're not. We've been doing this sort of 10 years now. We're not like sort of young kids who have grown up with TikTok and stuff like that. But I think learning the sort of algorithms of these things like TikTok and understanding the importance of them in terms of promoting your music is something we're trying to do more of now. We've got a new album coming out early start of the next year, back end of this year, and that'll be our last album for Universal and 3B, and then we're going to be just working out what we're doing next.
Okay. And so when you're doing an album, where do you draw the inspiration from? Do do you like collect bits of music that you like, and you're like, oh, I like the sound of that, I like this, I like that, and then do you create a folder or?
Yeah, I mean, Joe is like an animal in the studio. He'll like.
Hi, Joe, the animal. Get you on soon, mate. Talk about your animalisms.
That's a bit dodgy then. Yeah, he'll like, I'll spend about a week trying to make a tune. It still sounds a bit pants. And then like, he'll send over 3 in a day, which are all just lashing. And like, so he's one of these guys that's almost like, when he gets in front of his computer, he's almost autistic in like his style of like, he has to get it right. But it's like, blah, 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 like the Rain Man.
Completely on.
Yeah. It's, some people have got that and some people don't.
Yeah.
You know? And I think with the way that we've worked this album, we've had a shit ton of music over the last like year that we've been sort of collating and kind of working out. Obviously, we've got sets most weekends, and we play a lot of the tunes out. We know what works, but then you have to, when you're doing an album, you have to work out what works together as a bulk of work sort of thing, because a tune might be really good for the sets, but it doesn't fit in with everything else you've got on the album.
Got ya.
So we might save that for like potentially releasing after we get out. So yeah, I mean, I think this album's called London Sound. So like I said before, it's a sort of step back to our roots.
Okay.
With the drum and bass, there's a lot more jungly sort of influences on it, and I think it's pretty good. I mean, we're quite happy with it.
So it launches at the end of the year.
Yeah, or early next year. I think it might be sort of end of Jan.
Okay. And I guess what I really want to, the last sort of point I want to finish up on is, I always ask this to people that come on to the podcast. What's your advice for like, I don't want to say it's so condescending, but it's not condescending. It's just like the younger version of you, or someone that's starting out in the music industry or that wants to create music. What's your advice to them?
Oh God, there's so many bits of advice.
Just like, if you could pick out a key headline for them, what would it be?
If it was the younger version of myself and not to do with music to start with, would be, don't take everything so seriously, because it doesn't matter. Because I think that we get so caught up in our own heads, and especially with this like age of fucking fakeness that we're all in, where we look online and we see a version of reality that doesn't fucking exist. Apart. And the mad thing is, like, you know, we are kind of quite old now, and I still struggle to understand that, right? And like, every day, like you get, your reality is created by this every day, and it's like you have to make that choice not to let that happen, because reality is actually this, you know, and it's where we're at this moment here. And I'm sorry to sound like a hippie or whatever, but like all that stuff doesn't fucking exist, you know. So that would be the first thing, is like that, because at the end of the day, like I was saying to you earlier on, like one point we're going to be dead and it's all going to be finished, and none of this is going to fucking matter. So just enjoy the fucking journey. That's the first thing I'd say. In terms of the music side of things, I would say you know, it's not easy to become something in the music industry. I think there is a lot of rejection. There's a lot of you know, no's. There's a lot of positives as well, but there is a lot of rejection, and it's an industry which is almost like fashion, where you're suddenly on trend. It's trend based, and then next month there's someone else who's better than you. So you've got to really understand that, like, you've got to take your ego and your emotion out of it, and just kind of get your head down and believe in what you're doing, and just focus on that.
Cool. Amazing. I like those two. Okay, thank you very much for coming. And I think that's where we're going to end it. Thanks, Joe, man. You're a legend. Joe. Cameron. Thanks, Cameron.